All right, we're live. This is Senate Appropriations, and we're continuing our work on the FY 2024 big bill. And we left off Friday afternoon at Natural Resources section of the web report, which is page 58. And we will go through natural resources, and the big challenge, of course, is to come back and do the human services section, which usually, let's face it, Senator Sears, welcome. It's about half of state government, so it gives you some sense of what we're going to do. So natural resources, the administration, the House did change and added funding of $321 for 3 environmental justice positions created in 2022 Act 154. Was this something the administration just neglected to put in?
I think they supported putting it in. They did forget to put it in. They better support it with the House.
Well, we passed the bill, and this is to help support the legislation that we passed. So I think unless anyone has a question, we would concur with the House and close out that section.
Yeah, that's good. I think part of it is that they didn't have an operating budget, so this helps them get the work done.
Okay, so natural resources, state land property tax assessment.
The A&R pilot payments.
And this is A&R pilot, and the House made no changes, and this is just something that we, it's routine and no changes there. So we'll go into 702 and fish and wildlife support and field services. The House made no changes to the governor's recommend. I think that's pretty straightforward. I think, unless somebody has a comment on it, we will close that as well. 703, once again, no changes there. That's Forest Parks Recreation Administration. And next section is Forest Parks Recreation and Forestry. No changes there. And we had no testimony, I don't think, that would suggest that there was an issue with that or a request.
No, it's all good.
State parks, same thing, and lands administration. Whoops. Recreation. Those 705, 706. We can close out pretty quickly. 708. I don't know what happened to 707, but 708. Access roads.
707 probably was the old youth conservation court.
Oh, youth conservation court. And then 709, we're in environment. We've gotten through forest parks recreation, so now we're into environmental conservation, management, support services. Nothing there. No change recommended.
Trying to figure out where, okay, no, we haven't gotten to the water yet, but all right, so we're good.
Yeah, water programs is 711.
Yep.
Yeah, that one there, I got where the House raised, they put, if you notice from the governor's proposal,
What section are you on, Bobby?
70, the one you just brought up.
711,
Well,
711.
we're not there yet.
let's close out 710 and then go to 711, which is Office of Water Programs.
And just the only thing we got on it, there's an increase in the federal funds in the air and waste management line item compared to last year.
Yeah, a whole lot more.
Under the grants program in that first section, there's 500,000 that the House added, but that that's where they have boat cleaning and monitoring and, you know, that up here in the kingdom, that's pretty important because we have a lot of pristine lakes and we want to keep them that way. I didn't know if we could add a little more money there somehow to do the monitoring and the cleaning, because it's a lot better to prevent these things from coming in than it is to clean them up after we get infested with them.
Well, that is an addition, so I'm gonna just set the whole thing aside, because that will obviously go on our one-time list. And then we'll see what we have for money. If you, and I don't have, Ginny, do you have any communication? In other words, where did the 500,000 come from? Where was recommended? Was it from, we've got a letter, obviously, from the organizations that are concerned about water quality. And so we can take a look at that as well, but we're gonna just, we'll.
This is, as you can see, it's additional from the general fund that the House has done. So, yeah.
That'd be, hold that aside and then we'll figure it out as we.
Well, the Lake Champlain Basin Program also does the.
To the water quality.
Yeah, so these are base increases, so it isn't
Yeah.
even, so I'm gonna suggest that we treat these like all the other base increases and we'll take them and look at them as a package. So we won't close that section out until we look at all the associated requests.
But the monitoring request that Senator Starr just made, we would keep it as on a one-time list request, or
Yeah,
is that?
I don't know, Bobby, are you asking for the 500,000 is actually a base increase? Are you talking about one-time money to go with it?
Well, I mean, if that's all that's left is one-time money, it would certainly help for this next summer, but this is an ongoing issue and it really should be in the base if at all possible, but if not possible, at least one time would keep this.
We'll look at it within that context. But if, and I'm going to see if we can find the letter that we got, and you know which
Yep,
one.
I have it.
All right, so you want to
So
take a look at that, Ginny. We're setting this aside right now, so we can
Good.
go back to the request.
one other comment is that the special fund here that we're looking at, that's the water quality fund that includes property transfer tax revenue, Stephanie.
So
that,
I think there's more than one special fund here, but yes, the Clean Water Fund is in this section. In ag, it's its own line item specifically.
Right. So I just want to raise the issue about the property transfer tax, which will sunset.
Or is it a carve out of this rooms and meals allocation?
So it's both. It's
both.
Surcharge and the room to meals portion.
So I just want to identify the property transfer tax, which is due to sunset in 2027. And the fund continues on till 2039. And in my conversation with A&R, they were perfectly fine with having that sunset be taken out so that we would continue to see some revenue from the property transfer tax rather than sunset at 2027. We do have some language that would help us do that. And I think it's probably important to do it so we don't have to get into another discussion later on.
You want to remove the sunset?
Yes.
But that gets us into
Since there's time, that would probably be a decision that would be made across several policy committees.
Yeah.
And so we're building the 24 budget. It would be definitely something that you'd want to think about in the next 2 budget building cycles, before you get to 2027.
And normally those sunsets would come through finance as well.
Well, it is a sunset on that surcharge, and that was
Yeah.
done across multiple committees, this committee, finance and economic development.
Okay. I'm just raising it as an important issue so that the funding is maintained while it's needed.
Yeah. Well, at this point, I think we're gonna have to make sure that's on the list for action maybe next year.
Okay,
Because for us to do it unilaterally poses some jurisdictional problems.
could be a problem.
How
Okay.
much money?
What is it? Is it, Stephanie, help me with that one. Is it 4 to 5 million?
Well, the state of the market is different now, so it might even be.
I've got it right here, right
right
here. It says the property transfer taxes dedicated source provides clean water fund with between 5 to 8 million. And
5 to 8. Yeah.
that's
Around 4.
That's not pocket change, so yeah.
Yeah.
We would get.
Right, it's 5 to 8, and then it would help maintain after that, would help to continue the $1 million,
Right.
$1 million funding, yeah.
So obviously it's continuation is really important, but I don't think we can deal with the sunset right now.
Okay, all right.
We'll put on the list for the
Well,
next
no,
year.
that does make sense. I don't want to step on every other committee's toes.
No.
I know what that feels like sometimes.
All right, well, we sometimes been known to do that, Senator Lyons, but
We,
usually somebody lets us know. So
Okay.
we're gonna hold that section, 711, go on to 713, Natural Resources Board. Nothing changed there.
no, that's good.
And so we finished up natural resources and now we're moving into commerce and community development. And there was one change, and that is to funding for a position. And we're gonna add that to our list of position requests for now and hold that. Are they in-house meeting?
They just will be accounted for.
I wonder.
It's not updated online.
Maybe they're just.
Alright.
testing.
All right, economic development, 801, I'm sorry, 800. We're holding 800 for that position. And then we're moving to 801. Nothing has changed there in terms of the economic development, housing and community development. The house,
Was that one,
Economic development, this does have an embedded amount of money for the
They added special funds.
no, economic development.
I just wanted the committee to remember that there's an amount for the remote worker, attracting the workers in the base and economic development still, just as a reminder that there's.
Okay, we still have.
You have a baseline amount of about $1 million, is that right? In this grant line for the.
All right, oh, well, that's important to know that anything that's over and above the million in the base. So we're gonna give them incentives to move here, but they don't have a place to live.
so
Uh-uh.
I didn't understand so the $1 million is going for places to live, the whole program? What are we?
No, they, what Stephanie's reminding us is out of that 12.3 million in economic development, included is $1 million to support the remote,
You don't call it remote workers anymore.
relocation benefit to.
Yep,
So it's just to remind people that there's $1 million in the base to support that benefit. Because
And-
somewhere else I think somebody's floated a request for more money.
So the request for more money is separate from that million, and it's for housing.
No,
Okay.
no, I don't know if it is for housing. But when we get to our one times, we can make sure exactly
Okay.
what is being requested, but it's just a reminder. Oftentimes when we're getting requests, we don't go back and say, well, what is the level of funding we already have in place? So in
Yeah.
this, any other questions? Otherwise, I'm going to move to 802, which is housing and community development. And the House added a 1.5 million from property tax transfer. And this is to fund the RPCs?
This would fund the RPC, so you see this increase of spending authority here. And you also see it in D100 where the allocation of the 1.5 out of the property transfer tax is happening on the regional planning side of the municipal regional planning fund.
Can I go back? Can I bring something up that's related here? I believe that in the water section, in A&R section, there's a proposal for the distribution of funds for the watershed groups and others to go through the RPCs. So consolidating everything that we're doing for the RPCs, I think might be important to at least look at what's going on there.
I don't know.
Yeah, that was that was part of the conversation that I had with A&R, and we'll have to sort that one out.
Okay, I'm not familiar with anything from the Clean Water Fund to the RPC.
The
Well,
versus.
it was the watershed service providers going through the Vermont Housing Conservation Board and the RPCs for one-time expenditures. I think it was through the Act 76 rule. So that we can bring that up when we go back to A&R.
Okay, all right. We're kind of drawing a blank on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't, that was the first time I heard about it too.
Huh. All right, so there's,
I'll have to clarify.
So
are you saying out of the Clean Water Fund, there's dedicated funding for watershed?
That's what I'm hearing, and I'm going to clarify that.
You know, I feel like I need a map, but I'm not sure what the watershed groups are.
What is the 1.5 million? Can we, that's the one that the RPCs have been talking to us about.
Yes, they would like us to agree with the House and increase their base funding by $1.5 million.
Thank you.
They are funded by the property transfer tax formula that we notwithstand. So just like the HCB, they have not gotten the formula amount, and this would bring them much closer to the formula amount.
So yes, we've been hearing
Thank you.
them for obvious reasons. And so the question, we agree with moving more funding to the RPCs.
I would say I'm not opposed to moving more funding to the RPCs. I'd like them to get more funding, but we're putting all sorts of new money on the one-time list, and we've got all of this base funding to accommodate for. 1.5 is a big jump in base funding. So
what is the current base funding for RPCs?
It's in D100.
It's in B100?
D100.
B100.
So if you go to the base language, part of the property transfer tax, that's the very first one. So right now it's about $6 million. This would move to 7.5 for everything that's funded by the municipal regional planning. The regional planning piece is 6.2. That's in the House's proposal. That includes the one. It would have been at 4.7.
All right, so this is a base. Shall we can put it on our list of base increases and look at it as part of anything that's new on top of what there is. So
15-18% increase if you put.
Yeah, but
We haven't had one for quite a while.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and they
I'm-
do a lot.
I'm very sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm very supportive of their request, so I would like to see that be part of this.
Well,
I would
yes, Rich.
I would say I'm very supportive also, and if we can't do all that, in for me, this is not all or nothing, but base is going to become very short as we try to accommodate that 18 million in retirement into our base piece. And I just want to see the whole picture before I can say yes. And if nothing else, I want to give them a good chunk of one time if we can't do it all.
But we've been agreeing with other stuff, and all of a sudden we come to this and we don't agree.
Well, we've been holding most of the base and position increases to look at as a package.
Yeah.
I think we can do that within the context of base increases. We'll hold it, but I think that there's a sentiment that that would be one of our top priorities for base.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Tourism and marketing.
So just a reminder, this one is where in the governor's recommended column, you see that $1 million up in grants.
Yes.
And that was the $1 million increase, I believe, that is included for marketing in the governor's proposal. So you don't see a change from the House, but the governor did for grants out for.
All right. So
But
there's.
you know, if you look down those lists and, you know, personnel is a, you know, is they sucking up the money, and down operating, you know, it's cut. And, I mean, I don't know. The grants are up a little.
We can go in and I think we might find that the operating move to personnel because of contracts versus.
Yeah, I suspect for something that large, there's something that's behind it other than just.
You won't see positions increasing. I think it's whether or not something was
So,
counted as operating versus a contract, which
so
is
my
normally under
question
personnel.
is, on tourism and marketing, the governor, as Stephanie's pointing out, is increasing grants by $1 million. That is new money. Do we
Yeah.
want to take that and put it on our list? Because this is a base increase.
So I would suggest we put it on the list. But what is what's this $1 million on top of for grants?
On
Well,
top.
that's
Is
right
that
now in 23, it's 50,000.
In 23, it's 50,000. So I'd put it on the list.
Yeah, well, I think that's what I'm asking people. If it seems like that's the consistent and logical thing to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Treat it like all the, now, I would point out that we had a bill from education and we stripped out funding and they had 350,000 to for travel and tourism, right? Was it and marketing to market higher education in Vermont. And so I just want to connect. There's $1 million base increase. And we'll put it on the list, but associated with it is, and I don't know where that request came from. We're trying to get more information from Senator Campion because I don't know whether our practice is to single out particular segments of the economy for marketing, but I just want to remind the committee of that decision we made, or that was one of the appropriations in the bill that we removed and have put on our hold list. So the $1 million is there, and we'll put a notation about the 350. And I would ask, Adam, you're here, if you could get have that request reviewed by ACCD and how they would do it and whether they would recommend earmarking that level of funding for one particular sector of the Vermont economy. Okay, thank you. Vermont Council on the Arts.
They have a request, because they got their final federal award, to have just under $9,000.
$800, $8,900. And so we can add it to the list, or we can say this would allow them to draw down all the federal match. So
I think we ought to go for it.
So are we willing to go with 8,900?
Yes.
Going one,
Yep.
twice? Okay.
Yes.
All right, we'll add the additional match. The symphony, no change here. Although there is one-time money for the symphony because they're celebrating, is it their 90th anniversary, and they have a special event, but the base increase remains unchanged. The Historical Society, same for them. And then 8, 11.
The governor in the House, I don't know if it's here in the Historical Society, probably not. But the governor, I believe it proposed,
You're talking about the 250th?
yeah,
It's on, Stephanie and I put that on our list today.
okay, it's 117,000, I think.
And it's something in that vicinity. So no, we haven't forgotten. It's on our
Okay,
list.
the governor put it on his list. I think the House took it out.
I'm not sure, but either way, we didn't forget it because we know it's near and dear to your heart.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
It's on the list.
Good, thank you.
Now, VHCB, and I think we'll have to put this on our base request because they wanted to restore 10 million that we added to the base last year to reduce the not withstood level of funding to VHCB. And of course, the allocation to VHCB supports not only housing, but land conservation as well. So the governor removed that 10 million from the base and used one-time money in place. So the desire to kind of close or reduce that not withstood amount was significantly less. I'm going to suggest we do just like we have with the others, and that goes on our list, and we'll come back to it. We supported it last year, and I know that for conservation groups, that's something they ask for every year, is to eliminate that notwithstanding language. So we'll add that to our list. I hope somebody's keeping a list of our list here. Council, the House added 53,000 leveraged federal funds. Do you know anything about that, Sarah?
I don't think I know much more beyond that statement. Let me see if I can find some more information and circle back.
And it does bring them up to an even $300,000 of grant funding from the state.
So do people want to agree with that for the, it's a
If
relatively modest amount.
If that's to match federal funds, we should go for it.
Our practice has usually been to try to leverage the federal funds. So unless somebody wants to say they want to be totally pure and move that onto a list, I think we could close that out then and concur with the House.
Yep.
All right, so now we're on to transportation.
We normally skip over this and come back to it when it's coordinated with the transportation bill out of the Senate.
Right, so we will move over to
That leaves just debt service, which is just at the level needed to cover, and there's no change there. And that would put us back to human services, which starts on page.
Back.
So yes, hopefully the transportation bill will be coming out maybe Wednesday? Tuesday?
89, 31,
Yes.
What?
page 31.
Yes.
Or where we were
And
going.
that'll be on an hour. Oh, okay, so now we're back to human services, which is
Page 31.
31, right, I've got that here. We have a request from legal aid to increase their funding, and they get match. And so there is language here for their general services as well as the ombudsman
It's a
position,
long-term.
long-term care ombuds position.
So the healthcare ombudsman is in this and it's funded at the $1.8 million level. The House added $500,000 to the baseline of a little over $1 million for the poverty law and the mental health. And I believe legal aid is asking for another 390 on top of what the House has added.
So shall we take legal aid? I think we should probably put it on the list because it's not only what the House had, but they've come back and asked if they could have an increase in their increase so that they could fully fund a position. So I'm going to
Yeah.
add that to our list.
How many positions was that?
I don't,
I don't know how many positions that 390 is. I know when we get to Dale and the long-term care ombudsman,
Yep.
that would be bringing a current position up to full-time. It's a more modest task.
and I think also.
It's, I'm reading their request in our committee, Jane, and so there was 500,000 gross to maintain capacity, 390 for increased demand, and 450 for foreclosure and consumer debt protection. Then there was a gross amount of 250 additional funds to maintain capacity, add 2 staff. Alternative request only, add 1 staff. That would be 300,000 gross.
Yeah, we had Rachel Seelig came in and
Yeah.
and there were 2 pieces. They anticipate with the scaling back of the rental assistance programs that came with all the federal money, that they're going to have more work around evictions and preserving housing, which they've done a lot with the rental arrearage program. I think that's part of the HOP funding. So
Okay.
I'm going to, there were 2 pieces. One is what got put in the House, and then a subsequent request that got made, I guess, to you, Ginny, as well as me. And we have that on our list. And I'm going to just and look at it as a package. So we'll go on to 301. And this is going to glaze you over, but of course, global commitment is appropriated twice. So every time we make a change in Medicaid, it will change what starts out in the Agency of Human Services Secretary's Office for Global Commitment, and then gets appropriated out to the individual departments. So there are some changes here. As you can see, that would relate to grants for primary care, FQHCs, the adult days to enhance residential care. So I'm going to skip over the global commitment because that would just get calibrated with whatever final decisions we make relative to those Medicaid benefits.
Yep.
Human Services Board. Wait a minute, let me get something here.
Disabilities Council.
I'm sorry, we're coming back to this?
Well, this whole.
Did you say we're coming back to this?
Yeah, the global commitment, we don't need to spend time on it because whatever ends up here in the Secretary's office is going to be driven by the decisions we make around individual programs, like adult days, like residential care facilities, like
Okay, I understand.
primary care. There's a host of, and anytime we use global commitment, which is what most of Medicaid is, then it has to be reflected at the agency level as well as the individual department level. So this part, we just will update,
Okay,
final decisions that we make. Relative to.
okay, thank you.
Relative to individual programs. So 303 is Developmental Disabilities Council, and there was no change there. And then Human Services Board, nothing is being changed there. Who is the chair of the board? Do you know, Dick?
Oh gosh, well-known person
Yeah, I have,
from
we're
Chittenden
doing
County, I think.
yeah, we're doing a confirmation on that
Oh,
next Friday, and I can't tell you who the person is, but we have it.
I think we all know him. That's embarrassing. Not remember.
Mike Donahue is the chair.
Let's see.
I don't know. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
it's not on my list of confirmations, so I don't have it with me.
Let's move to 305. This is just an administrative fund that they use to pay fee for space and other kinds of
It's
costs.
been that we grant them and they.
So this has been in
Charge out
place
to the
for quite a
departments.
while. And then health access.
Admin line.
The House made no change.
Okay.
So this is just, look at the size of Diva's administration. There was almost Rosie and a staff of 10 at that point. So no change has been made on the administration. This has nothing to do with benefits. This is just the administrative expenditures. And I imagine that includes the MMIS,
Yes.
which is a very costly
Is-
fiscal intermediary payment for Medicaid claims.
Is that why it went from 27 to 44 million?
Are you talking about operating expenses?
Yeah, I mean, that's a, 17, what, 17
Yeah, I think that's the MedWAS.
over $20 million.
Yeah, that's their fiscal intermediary, the Medicaid Management Information System. There was on their request, it's called MedWAS. It's their newest version of
Medicaid Data Warehouse.
it's the newest iteration of their claims processing.
But then their grants, I don't know where the grants go, but they're way down for some reason. What do they use the grants for? Because it's for people,
This is all admin. I don't know. I'll have to check. I'm not sure.
We can go in and
I
get
don't know.
what the detail is on the
We
grant
can-
line for the
We
admin
can
line.
see why that went down, but we know that MedWAS, based on their presentation, represents a significant increase, and that's what you're seeing here. I don't know, there might be, we'll see where the grants are, what they're granting out.
There's no increase in their ups and downs for 24, so I'll take a look at what we did in 23 budget adjustment for the grants line.
To move it to the ACO, the true up, if we did it
Oh,
here. if
maybe
we did-
that was it.
we
Oh,
did
maybe
on
that,
In the 23 line.
oh, that's probably it. Yeah, I think that's right. With OneCare, there's a contract and there's a truing up, and we think that
We approved that in
payment
23.
was reflected in 23, but it's
Okay.
not reflected in 24.
Okay.
well, that's good to know.
All right,
The chair of the Human Services Board is Mike Donahue,
Mike Donahue.
the reporter.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's the same Mike Donahue, the reporter, huh? Okay, so let's move on to 307. And this is where all the big money is. And we're gonna have to go through, these are all base increases. As you can see, there's the FQACs, the Medicaid transportation, which we dealt with in the budget adjustment. And this is a continuation of that funding level that we did in the BAA, because the reimbursement methodology was actually not covering the cost of the providing the transportation. So I think we will put these all on our increase list. Now, one thing that we have gotten, Ginny, and you can see the ACCS is there. We have the, I guess that would be in DMH, wouldn't it, on the, well, it depends.
No, I think that, are you talking about the private?
Which one?
DIVA would be the privately practicing mental health. And one of the letters that we got from a practitioner had to do with a fee reduction, a reimbursement reduction.
Yes.
Proposed, came from a practitioner from your area, Rachel Oblak, around a fee reduction. And do you have any knowledge about that, Senator Lyons?
I have the same knowledge that you do. I got the same letter.
Okay.
So, and it, right, it was, I'll double back and check, but it was concerning to see that.
Well, I can,
We have the letter.
yes, I do have the letter, and I
Yeah.
do see the part of the budget, so I suppose I could put
Yeah.
that on my to-do list in terms of the reduced reimbursement. And these are, we have, it used to be about $25 million for reimbursement to the privately practicing clinicians, and includes psychologists, licensed clinical social workers, I believe. So that's that's separate and in addition to what goes out through the Department of Mental Health. So I'll check on that.
Okay.
I'll add that to my list of things to follow up.
Well, it does raise the whole issue of private practitioners, independent providers.
Yeah. So there's a long list, as you can see here, and those will all have to be ones that we review and agree upon as we are looking at how we construct our base spending and the additions to that. So 307 is going to be part of a larger discussion as we look at in total of the sheet that identifies all the base increases either requested or included by the House. State only 309.
So can I just ask, in the shifts in 307, which is most of the global commitment stuff, will we get the picture of what the administration has also recommended for increases in that area?
You can see what the governor's recommending just above.
Yeah.
What the House is changing, which is 26.5 million.
You don't
I mean,
know.
930,000. I'm sorry.
But that's in total. For example, in DCF, there is the Bar J programs at the Restorative Justice. The administration has been recommending moving that from general fund spending over to global commitment or Medicaid. And I was wondering where we might be when we go through each individual budget. Is that where we're going to do that, or will we be coming back here?
What you're seeing here is what is coming and being administered by DIVA. It is not
Yeah.
the agency level. And so these
Okay,
are payments that are all being made by DEVA. And
okay. So these are just, Steve,
This
I get
appropriation is driven primarily by the consensus group, based on caseload and utilization. I don't believe there are any specific rate increases in the governor's recommend.
okay, thank you.
The dental cap.
dental, and they do have language for that. But all of these here are additions to the governor's recommend. And
Okay.
that is something that we'll have to look at as part of the overall list of general fund base increases. And many of them
Okay.
talked about, and I expect that we will want to do as many of them as we can, simply because of the nature of the reimbursement and also recognizing access to care and many of them are, well, as I say, the big one is the Medicaid transportation. But primary care is on the list, as you can see. EMS is definitely on the list, and that brings it up to Medicare. So those are all, I think, will receive very high priority when we go through and say what we want to add to the base.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that the EMS stuff is pretty vital.
Well, I think all of them are. The one thing that and we'll get into some of the increases fall into Dale, like for example the adult days, that increase there. So we're gonna relook at all these and see how we what ones we want to select, whether some we feel we want to make some additions to or whatever. But with that, I'm going to move on to 309. And the House added, they restored the cost sharing reduction program.
What is that, Jane?
Well, it buys down the cost of the silver plan for folks that are eligible. This represents the 500. It represented half a year because this is a fiscal year budget, and the healthcare plans are on a calendar year. And so this program has been in the buy down, the cost sharing has been in place since Obamacare turned on. The administration was proposing to eliminate that for a variety of reasons. It's about $1 million total, a little over $1 million total annually. And the House is not ready to eliminate that program yet.
And that's the cost sharing on health insurance policies?
It's the cost sharing on health insurance for folks under a certain income level.
When we went to when the healthcare reform federal legislation, and we replaced this coverage with what we had for Catamount Health, that actually meant that people had less generous coverage than they did under the state approach. And so there were several ways that we were trying to moderate that negative impact. And this is,
I think,
so the question
doesn't that keep people having health insurance so they aren't on Medicare and things? So
no,
that's probably well spent.
no, these are
This is the state only program.
this is state, yeah, this is state only. So
These are folks not on, your primary insurance is not Medicaid, it is through the exchange. And this amount of money would go to the value of a particular, I think it's the silver plans that it drives down the cost of that plan. Even though they're available, the tax credits, it's a complicated choice for people to make in terms of which are the best plans to choose.
So the governor's budget wanted to eliminate that cost sharing. And the House said, no, that was not a reduction they wanted to take. So the question is, do we want to add that buyback to our list, or do we want to say that's not a reduction that we want to take? 'Cause
Well,
it's-
I would add it, I would agree to hold that, not hold that section, but to pay that buy down so that people will
Okay,
manage.
so what you want to do is continue that funding for the buy down. Other members?
I'm fine with that. I think it makes sense.
All right, so we
So
will.
that would close that
We will
section.
close that section out then. And then we've got the Medicaid non-waiver match. And that's, oh, let's see, S-chip
And dish.
and dish are in there. And so that didn't change. And S-chip is the Medicaid additional, or it was a separate program to bring in more children into Medicaid eligibility. And we got a higher match. So this is what 310 is. It's just a very specialized group where you get, where it's outside the waiver, but you're getting the Medicaid participation. So I'm going to close that out because we want to cover all our kids and we want to make our dish payments to hospitals. Those are disproportionate share payments. That's DSH. That's why they're called DISH, not DISH, for those who might be listening. Now we're into the health department. And this is where we're adding, and this is in the Workforce and Economic Development Bill, and that is the list of those changes are being considered by our Economic Development Committee, and we don't have a recommendation back from them at this point. There is
Health and welfare will be weighing in on that on Wednesday.
okay. So those are on hold. Those are going to be determined by final decisions. And then public health. This is also another increase of general fund and federal funds to the free and referral clinics. And I think that has to go on the list as well.
And if you keep it, there's a technical correction that this would actually move into the alcohol and drug abuse appropriations. If you decide to keep this.
Free and referral go into. Why?
Yep.
They provide the broad range of healthcare services, some of them even dental.
Actually, it goes into admin. I should have thought out admin. Yeah.
Oh,
It'll go up to be 311.
all right,
It is an
so,
admin match. It's a,
all right, so if we do it,
it's
it's,
administrative support activities.
we will move it, but it's on the list for us to come back to. Once again, this is a big one, alcohol and drug abuse programs. And this is the reflective of the testimony that we got from numerous people. We are going to provide a list of all the increases, because like the 1.8 is a 90% increase on the base. And the $1 million for global commitment for, this is, I thought the million was for housing.
That's
I
on-
want to comment here.
That's on the one time.
Yeah,
I see they include Jenna's Promise in there, but there are other recovery centers, housing, for recovery centers that may not be included in this. And I'm concerned that we're covering all of them.
this is
just
for
getting-
all of them. This
This is for all of
This is
them.
not Turning Point clubs then.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
Well, but what about recovery housing? Are we including recovery housing in there? That's what I want to know.
The recovery housing is separate.
Well, then, but I thought Jenna's Promise was recovery housing.
no.
They have a
Jen-
lot of things. They've, go ahead, Richie.
No, go ahead. You're.
I was
in
just
this-
gonna say they have a number of programs. Housing is just one part of it. And it would seem to me that this wouldn't be enough to cover everything.
No, and there is a separate piece for housing,
There is, and that's $1 million.
and that's $1 million too. That's where this gets
Second box is
confusing.
for- I just want to confirm it doesn't, what is SUP?
Substance use provider.
Provider rates by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is just plain the rate
It's not,
increase.
it's not, that's on the one-time list.
I would say there is some confusion around the divide up of the 1.85 for recovery centers. Because there are 11 in the association, but there were 13. So when we get into the division of that, we need to look at the list of who this is all being divided up amongst.
I think it's all the certified recovery centers plus Jenna's house. That was the
Yeah.
request. And,
Yes,
What's a little unclear is how much of the Jenna's Promise piece is the 1.8.
so as I understand
I guess it
it,
would be their
they-
proportionate share.
last year we gave in total to Jenna's Promise 400 in base, and we gave 100 in one time. Their overall for Jenna's Promise, the 400 is built into the base. This would their share of the 1.8, and it will be divided up amongst the members within that association or group. Jenna's Promise will get a share. So that's where that extra 100,000 that we put in one time would come.
Well, but we're gonna put it on our list. It's a
Yep.
different request.
It is-
So they're gonna get a total of 500,000?
That's what they got last year.
But I believe they got it all in general fund. They were not matched the way recovery centers are matched. And so.
No, they got it in 400 in base and 100 in one time
But
last year.
But this is all global commitment versus general fund. The nature of Jenna's Promise, I think, in terms of their support, needs to be entirely in general fund for the time being.
Get the startup, but this is all matched. As you can see, it's global commitment.
Yes.
And we're gonna put it on our list.
How is it divided up amongst the different?
We don't know. That's the whole thing, what the distribution allocation will be. And
I
don't-
think they're leaving that up, that there's talk about leaving that up to the members of, and that's why it's important whether it's all 13 or 11 or how they figure it out.
Well, I think this is, okay, all right. So once again, this is a base increase and it's a very significant, so you can see we're getting into provider increases of great variability. ACCS, those are residential care, I think that's like 76%. So days were 15%, our DAs and SSAs were like 4%. So we're having a sheet made up in terms of, now, of course, a lot depends on what your base is. So the smaller your base, obviously, it will make a much bigger percentage than, you know, if you've got a base of several hundred million as opposed to, 2 million. So we're adding this to our list. We'll come back. Mental health, this again goes on the list. That has to do with, we're at 314. And that would be to do a 4% rate increase. And for both SSAs, DAs. And the other issue here that we've had discussion, and we did not do anything last year, and that is to begin to address the rate disparity among designated agencies. And so if we are looking at increases to the base, there has been a request from Care Partners to allocate a certain amount of money to allow them to start addressing the disparity in rates between agencies, because the spread is really very significant. And we can't begin to close it, but I would say if we do the 4%, if we're able to, and agree with the House, that we would look at something in addition to that, that would be specifically designated to begin to make those rate adjustments between the different agencies, because it's hard to understand why reimbursement should be 50% higher in one agency for the same service that it's another agency's getting. The disparity is very, very significant. So we'll put that on hold on our list. And
So, and Jane, the Vermont Care Partners request is itemized more in detail, a little more detail, not a whole lot, but sufficiently on the Senate Health and Welfare budget page. Of course, they asked for 10%, but it's also has the breakdown of how the funds would be used for help for rate equity.
yeah, well, so whatever we do, I think there's a desire that we break it up into two amounts, one for just the pace increase for everybody, and then an amount that would be used to support the getting moved into the equity. But that gets very complicated because some agencies' rates were pumped up in order to fund a particular initiative. And so you have to take all that into consideration because their rates would appear as so much more for the same service, but it was a mechanism to move funding out for maybe a particular program or initiative. And you don't want to destabilize the funding for those embedded services that are being funded by those rates. So we'll move on to DCF and admin and support. No changes there. And then the bottom is family services. And there's a whole host of additional changes there. And I think you said the family supportive housing, if we do it, is in the wrong place, that's actually an OEO.
It is an OEO.
So I'm going to put those those additions on our list, and we'll have to determine whether we concur or modify or increase or decrease or whatever. And these are over and above what the governors recommend. So we'll, and I don't know, was there any?
Is that mostly general fund, Jane?
It's a combination of general and federal. You can see some is the supported housing that belongs in OEO is global commitment. The grant to Mentor Vermont is general fund. That's a very significant increase on the base. And then we had some discussion about the extent to which some of the prevention money that is going to be available through the cannabis revenue should perhaps be allocated to certain interventions so that they have predictable and stable funding. But this is something that we'll come back to, and I'm going to keep going to child development.
So I haven't received the sheet back from the agency. Maybe Stephanie has, because I haven't been able to go through my email this morning, but they were looking at the positions to match the childcare bill.
Yeah, well,
So we did provide the money in that bill, but the positions, I hadn't seen anything yet this morning, but I haven't looked at it.
Catherine, Katrina, she was going to get back to me on that, and she was going to email you, Stephanie. So we should be getting that.
but that's, we funded the positions, we just didn't create them in the bill. So that would be in the position section probably. You just add to
Yes,
that list.
Yeah, and the House actually took the positions that the governors recommend out because they were going to run in the other bill. So they just, by the time we're done, we need to have the correct amount of
Yeah, so we're
positions.
just gonna hold and
Created.
align. But we know we need to create the positions.
Before we move off 318, the House is pulling out the nearly 56 million in the governor's recommend. We applied 49 million of that in the child care bill construct. The 6.9 that is for the school age piece of the governor's proposal. That I think is a little bit still up in the air in terms of whether or not that would remain in. We didn't give a whole lot of thought to the impact on school age children from our proposal in the bill. So I just wanted to note that that piece of it particularly is probably still open here.
We think that we need to accommodate that.
Is the equity piece still?
What?
There was $500,000 for equity, for rejiggering or eliminating the emphasis on the STAR system.
That's embedded in the child care bill, I believe.
That was part of that
Yeah.
56 million.
And
That's
then,
embedded in the whole change in the child care bill. But the school age children particularly are the piece that I think needs to remain open here.
yes, I think there's a lot of moving pieces on that one. And then they did an increase for parent child centers, which will go on our list. Most of this is general fund. So it's a total of 2 million?
2 million in total.
And I don't know what percent increase that is. But we'll have that on our list, right? That we're getting. 319, Office of Child Support, there's really no change there. We like child support income. AABD, last year we did the first increase in the AABD payment in 2 decades. And that took effect this January. So we're not making an increase here, but I'd like to say that was something that we did.
And it also rolls out the full year of that increase.
So we're putting AABD back on the map. Most people didn't even know it existed or what it was. Now we're into GA, and what the House did was take a portion of what the governor had for emergency housing and put it into the general assistance base, because GA has always had some base for housing. So they took 7.5 million. And I really, we can put it on the list, but I really think that we better recognize that that program is going to be experiencing significant housing costs, and doing this
Yeah, but
makes it.
I totally agree with that, but this goes into that broader discussion about how all the pieces fit together here and what we do.
I would like to say that this is to pay for emergency housing. It's not to create anything or capacity. So we can hold this because it's it was taking a certain amount of the governor's recommend for the emergency housing and allocating it specifically to the GA base. So GA has historically paid for benefits and under GA rules in terms of emergency housing. We kind of let GA alone as we put in all these federal COVID related monies that supported this.
And you can see how small the GA base has become in the.
Yes, and if you look at what you have for GA, just the emergency, which has adverse weather and more restrictive view of vulnerable, the amount of funding in the GA base is pitiful. It's now 2.8. It used to be over 10, 12 million years ago.
There is no actual emergency housing base in GA in 23.
So at it as a whole, but I do think that we're gonna have to restore, recognize that our GA program has no funding in the base at this point for emergency housing, and,
I'm actually okay with doing the 7.5. My bigger question is if we get, we put 2.5 million into shelter capacity. If we start moving money into shelter capacity and and we can grow that, how does that back into, GA? You know, if we can't get any shelter capacity built, the 7.5 million isn't enough.
well, that is true. I guess if we do nothing, then our GA base is pretty pitiful at 2.8 million.
Well, it has to, I'm just saying, I'm not real clear that 7.5 is whether it's the right number or not, because we have started to move money into shelters and some of these people would be people that would be eligible and would fit in a shelter. And so the overall question is, as these programs go away and we move back into this area, what is the 7.5 the right number, or should it be higher?
Well, at this point, I don't know. I don't think anyone knows at this point. So many things that have got to fall into place. This is at least something compared to nothing.
I'm fine with adding the 7.5.
Okay.
I'm just saying, in the overall, I'm not real clear what our thinking is around all of that as it relates to moving forward.
Well, if we,
It does,
Ginny moaning.
I don't think.
well, no,
I don't
I'm
think anybody knows.
groaning because it's such a compound fracture with the whole discussion about the Oregon plan and how we're going to build out more permanent housing. It all just falls together. It's a big discussion. What I don't know what I honestly think we're going to need some kind of recommendation from the Committee on Housing and Economic Development folks. This is a big deal, big issue.
I did with that earlier question, I did ask that the Secretary's Office in Human Services,
18.
now with all of that, what would their recommendation be in where we are? And that's another one of those things. I'm waiting for them to get back to us. And I thought they were going to get back to us this morning about that. And that would maybe be a starting place for Senate Economic Development to help work on.
Well,
But
we know that the governor's budget included a total of 26 million. So that's what the administration has put out, and I imagine that's what you'll get back from DCL. What the governor recommended.
it may absolutely be that. But I'm just saying, the 7.5, I'm not sure where all the pressure points that affect that are right now.
And I don't think anyone knows at this point.
No.
It's so under development. But I think
Regardless of what we do, the 7.5 is probably important to keep in.
I would think that's kind of the consensus.
Yeah.
The question is what the actual experience is gonna look like. 3 squares, this is just the cash out piece of the food stamp program that goes to certain beneficiaries, elderly and people with disabilities. The Reach Up program, there's no changes there. There is on the one time, of course, the 2 million for that pilot to see if there are ways in this work environment, and the caseload has increased. Remember, budget adjustment, we put 7 million, I think, into that caseload. So
Well, we're gonna have to, when we get to that, that 2 million, and, the House changed, what it is the 2 million is a program where they would come in, and for those people that are going, from Reach Up to work, it's a bonus program that is offered. The administration offered bonuses that were further out. The House switched it back for bonuses coming in. It does bring up the larger question around Reach Up with the section above in 3 squares. With this population losing a tremendous amount of food aid, with the volatility in housing and everything, would we just do stuff for the people that are moving off and Reach Up into the workforce and give bonuses? Or would we, as this committee has done in the past, look at some way to help people over this bump? There's been a huge drop in the money going into 3 squares.
Well, that's probably gonna connect us to the next, into the one-time list. That is the level of funding to the food bank program, and also to our senior meals, which are a way of helping with the nutrition.
Yep. I totally agree but they all bump up against each other, and with these 2 sections sitting right next to each other, it is going to bring up that discussion.
Mm-hmm. And then obviously the universal meals doesn't really impact the kids that are the poorest here on Reach Up, or the families that are food stamp dependent. Shall we go on to fuel assistance? I think that's.
Yep.
Okay.
What we reflect in the fuel assistance line, Maggie's line, is the baseline grant.
Because sometimes it's more than that.
It gets trued up through excess receipts in the fall, but it doesn't necessarily get reflected here. But Maria Bellabo puts together the funding history so you can follow the federal funding. It's one of the sections of the budget that gets us every sort of updated.
And the special funds, what are those?
Is it weatherization that comes? Oh, it's the swap out piece of weatherization.
You would think that the LIHEAP program, with all the insulating we're doing and window changing and all that, you would think that need would go down instead of up all the time. I know one of the guys that rents from me, he ends up the season with a full tank of fuel, and because we've been through the whole darn house, and it doesn't take anywhere near as much oil as it used to, or heat. But
there's so much variability in housing stock. But normally, I guess the percent that it gets of the fuel can vary a lot, because most people are not as fortunate, I guess, as your tenant to be so well insulated. Some of the housing stock is old and pretty drafty. So, but this is just the federal number, as Stephanie was telling me, put in here.
The baseline for the one rent.
And then we going under OEO. The House put more funding, and this is going to go on to our housing list. 2 million for the housing opportunity. It's designed to help people preserve their existing housing and avoid eviction.
And underlining in the governor's recommend, there's 3.4, I believe, of increased shelter capacity that he's built into the base in his recommendation. That you don't see noted here as part of the GovRec.
Here, that's in this 24.9.
Yes.
How much you got?
I think it's 3.4.
3.75.
Okay.
I have the S and Ws open.
Okay.
So there's 3.75 for housing opportunity.
For increasing shelter capacity.
Oh, increase in shelter. And by that, we're talking about the emergency shelters, kinds of
Grant out
centers.
to the homeless agencies, homelessness agencies.
OEO weatherization, it's just mention of the 15% and probably the fuel receipts, right, fuel tax.
That's what you see on the special, that's the weatherization fund.
Been in place since a long time. Secure residential,
Now, that's what's left from the Woodside budget. That was what, 7 million?
So this is what goes out to pay for contracts for placements now.
Well, I understand that, Stephanie, but I'm saying it was the Woodside budget,
It was formerly,
about 7 million.
yeah, it was formerly the Woodside line.
And if they do go back to a secure treatment facility in state, it'll be much more than this.
probably you're right, once they get online, you're talking about the 6 bed, the 8 beds.
So just preparing for the future, one would expect it's going to be another 3 to 4 million on top of what's here. The grants are going out to New Hampshire and wherever else they put it.
I was gonna say, some of those expenditures are probably in a different appropriation,
Might be.
because
My understanding was this paid for Sununu, and it might be doing grants to that program in Washington County for 2 kids, program down in Wyndham County for 1. That might be where that money is.
in the micro facility here in Washington.
Yeah.
Um,
Turtle Rock or something like that.
There's no change, can you
No, I
just-
understand that. I just wanted to point out that I expect it'll be much higher in next year's budget.
Or in the supplemental.
And assuming that those facilities are up and running.
Well, they have to be, I would think.
Well, let's hope so.
Yeah.
Because right now, we're patching everything together. 328, disability determination, as you can see, almost exclusively federal funding, and that's to determine eligibility, disability for SSI, Social Security, and I think they do some reviews for Medicaid. So that's no change. Now we're into Dale. There are some changes here, and I will add the position to our list, and that's the dementia coordinator.
Well, we certainly heard a lot during our hearing with our advocates about dementia in that, so.
And then 9, quality assurance oversight, that's in addition. Didn't the governor propose some?
Have 3 Office of Public Guardian positions and
That was it,
appropriation.
okay. Rich, if you had conversations, we'll add these positions to our.
So I have in because I don't have my stuff in front of me, I had hoped to be in today, but I think in this is from memory, I think 5 of these they really need to put on to be compliant, but I will I'll have that definitively, but I think all of these positions, and I would say that Bobby is correct. I'm not sure about the breakup of how the House put together the way that these positions are distributed and I think there's a difference between how the Dale thinks the positions ought to be used. But I can I will have that when I get back to look at my sheets tomorrow.
All right, well, at this point, they're going on the list.
Yep,
So
they
keep this
should.
open.
And I will agree with Bobby, the dementia groups, that position is something that they've been pushing and would really like.
Yeah.
Well, we certainly know that from the public hearing.
Yep.
Yeah, they've been very, very supportive. They've brought in a lot of good testimony in our committee as well. But it does belong on a list. There's no question about it because there are
Yep.
a lot of other compelling issues.
Yep.
Yes, go ahead, Jamie.
Well, I just want to know, have we walked past the CIS, Children's Integrated Services?
No, if you're
Yeah,
talking
we're not
about,
there yet.
um,
Okay.
the IT system and the Salesforce.
Yeah.
So that's one time, the agency has said that they do not support that. In fact, that software isn't even compatible with the child care development information system that we've been funding and bringing to completion. So they are arguing that that is not a good approach to take and actually would not fit at all with money that we put.
Talking about the IT, right? And they've also got a request for caseload increases. So,
Yep.
but
But I would back up what the chair has said about the computer systems. They want to make sure that what they do, all the systems that they build talk to each other. And so, and they said the most important thing is within child development, get the system so you can draw down your federal money is put into place, and we have time limits to be able to do that. So that is vital for us to draw down the money that we need from the feds.
So, now we're into 330. And there were quite a few changes there. And we have more for the legal aid. We talked about the long-term care ombudsman, and we have that funding already on our list. And then more money to AAAs for senior meals, and then the adult day increase.
Yeah, and yeah.
There's a technical correction from AHS that a portion of this adult day increase should be in the long-term care appropriation. So if we move forward with that, some of it will shift there.
Yeah, and I think there are some things to consider when we get to the one-time list about where the adult days are also.
Well, the adult days would be a base increase in their reimbursement.
Yep. But
I don't remember a one-time request for them, but.
Well, I'll have some information for you. Apparently, there is at least one community that is really interested in opening an adult day, and that we've heard, and that might be in Rutland, and they're looking at what we do with the rate increase, but they also might also need some startup money, but depending on what we do. And I would say about the adult days, I think that they would like a higher increase than this 15%.
I know, they want 25.
$25 an hour.
And we're
Yep.
costing out what that would be because of house, the 15% was moving it up to 21.75 or something.
Yep. Yep.
So, you can see their rates were quite modest compared to some of the others that recommended under the study. And they
Yep.
obviously feel that, what
I just think there's a number of issues around the adult days that we will have to talk about.
all right, so, 331, so obviously these increases are on our list. 331, nothing has changed on the blind and visually impaired. Folk rehab, as you can see, primarily federal funds, 80-20 match, that's what you're getting there with the general fund for, and there is quite an increase under grants. It's over 3 million. Do you know what is driving that?
Federal Fund 9, so.
I know that they have been very good about getting special grants, and they actually, now they're advertising under the name of the program as Hireability. So
I just have to say that hireability seems like a really terrific program. Well, I've talked with a number of folks actually working boots on the ground, and it's just amazing what they do.
The ups and downs just indicates it's a federal funds adjustment, so it must be aligning their federal appropriation with what they anticipate to receive.
I do think there was in the federal budget, perhaps, a piece where there was increased capacity from
for vocational rehabilitation. Well, I think we can close it out. We obviously know that they're more successful in attracting federal support. But it's the old VR program that's been modernized and seems to have really good visibility. So the next line is DS, Developmental Services. As you can see, that's a big appropriation.
Yep.
And that is on for a 4% increase. So that will be on our list. Same as the other provider increases. Same for the TBI. And we're down now to 334.1 long-term care. The House decreased rates for personal care and homemaker from Gov's recommend to 15%. You know what that's about?
the governor's proposal had the elimination of the home health provider tax and an increase in rates. And the House is making the choice to land at that 15%.
Yeah.
Thing to the adult days.
You had 3 million gross total increase in the rates. I don't know what,
But why would they lower, is that for home health and their care? Why
Well,
would that?
Combined with that, we have had for a long time a provider tax increase, a provider tax. And the governor is proposing to eliminate that tax, which means that there's, it's over $7 million, I believe, that they don't have to pay in on the tax.
Right.
So combined with this is something that had a financial benefit to the delivery system.
Yep.
So, I mean, we'll have to look at that in total, because you can see the enhanced res care rates got increased by 4%. And we need to understand what that is. And maybe you know the answer, but this is an increase, and that is this is for enhanced residential care, but for the regular ACCS, there was a 76%. So is this additive? You know,
yes.
it's on top of the 76%.
I'm just wondering if this is, Is this at or below the level that was recommended in the rate report? You got the
I'd
report.
have to check against the rate report.
All right, we'll see if we can get a little more detail on it. But we're setting it aside for now because it's an increase. Now we're into corrections there.
Yep. So the only place there's a change is what one would expect on 337,
I mean,
335 and 30. Yeah. And I would agree. I agree with the governor.
I think we all, well, I do too, but we fought that battle so many years and never succeeded.
Well, maybe this year will be different. We have a new chair of House Appropriations, and
Just moving into that.
It would put it on the ed fund.
And that would have an impact on the yield.
it's education. Education should be paid for out of the education fund.
We've made that argument, but the yield bill, as it's come out, we would actually have to go in and modify it for that additional spending. So
What?
in the past, we've articulated our agreement with the administration, but felt that this was not an area that we were gonna prevail. We've got we've got enough, I suppose, areas of disagreement. People wanna wave a white flag on this one, or?
Nope, I'm gonna stay my position, but you all can outvote me.
On 337?
Yep.
Well. It's a lot of,
It's adding, well, let me tell you, the
it's quite a lot of money.
taxes, this will have almost a 4-cent increase on the rate. We have a little bit of reserve, but universal school meals is gonna be another 3 cents, so, between us, we could have 7 cents impact on the property tax rate.
Yeah.
0.7 million.
All right, well,
39 million or something.
I hope the governor keeps recommending it. I'll keep supporting it.
Sorry, 1 cent.
I just want to
I
say,
give,
I just want to say I agree.
I'm sorry, I need to be clear, I misspoke. Each 10 million equals 1 cent. So the community high school of Vermont
At a third of a cent.
is about a third of a cent. So the impact on property taxes is not great. The 30 million universal school meals is 3 cents on the property tax rate.
Yeah, I think we ought to check it off.
I mean, just agree with the House.
Yeah.
I agree philosophically that that's where, but it's just one battle that we've never succeeded.
Well, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try once more.
Now, are we disagreeing with them on transportation funds, not the purity of that fund? Does this explain it that at all?
Are you talking about the purchase and use going to the T fund? I mean, going to the ed fund?
No, the match. But that's another issue.
That's a different issue.
I just don't want to undermine our argument that transportation funds should stay in transportation.
So what are we doing here?
Well, I'm just looking around. I think Senator Sears has taken what has been our position, but at some point we've chosen our battles and we have not concurred with the governor and have agreed. I think we've got some other things that are going to hit the ed fund, so maybe this isn't the right time to do that. One has to do with the COLA payments on the retirement benefits. So unless anyone speaks up, I'm going to suggest we concur with the House very reluctantly and feel that we still believe that these individuals who don't have a high school diploma, who are in our correctional system and have an entitlement to their high school education, should be funded in the same way as any other eligible Vermont.
I would just say, I agree with Senator Sears. And I haven't got an answer back yet on adult basic education, where the movement is to shift $1.5 million to the general fund as the ed fund portion shrinks for adult basic education too. So in both of those cases, the general fund ends up the punching bag.
Do you want to keep this open till we hear more in terms of whether the ed fund on that 1.5 loss that has been experienced to support those, actually it's part of flexible pathways.
I'm good with that.
And the
I'm
computer.
good with that.
Yeah.
Get that.
Yeah, and also we've kept the computer modernization costs in the ed fund. I'm just thinking now, in light of everything that's happened, this is not the time to be moving this.
Well, I agree with you, Jane.
Okay. So I'm gonna move on then and go to correctional service.
Nothing there.
Okay. And
I
then,
mean, the increases are all related to overtime. I mean, not over, enhance getting people to work there.
yeah, they're doing a lot of recruitment. You see
Yeah.
ads on TVs, I think they're quite good ads in terms of people speaking personally about the benefits.
Judiciary is meeting with the commissioner about all the language on Wednesday. And I'm still trying to work with Representative Squirrel on the out-of-state bed appropriations and the JR2 funding.
Well,
So we shouldn't close that yet.
no, our hope is that we can go to that 900,000 in the JR2.
But you
Yep.
you have to restore the funding that the House took out of the out-of-state beds because of the miscalculation of the bed count. And then the question.
Right, that's the 899,000.
Yeah, that needs a correction, but where you land on JR2, if you are trying to stay sort of at a 900 increase over time, you could take money out of JR2 of about $720,000. But if you wanted to have more funding flow through a JR2, that would stay open until we figure out where you are in your base.
Yeah, so we'll keep that open. On the one time, there was actually, when we went through the language, there was funding for training, remember, for leadership and other management training for, or I don't remember, staff development. But the one thing that I know that has happened since the House built their budget and the governor did is that the Department of Corrections has gotten almost a $740,000 grant from the U.S. Department of Justice, and it to be awarded to the state colleges. The grant awarded to the state colleges, and then a sub-grant. So there will be to engage correctional facility staff and post-secondary educational opportunities, employment opportunities, both within state government and the department. So there's actually been a fairly significant shot of money that has come through this federal grant for staff development and training for DOC people. Just bring that up because that was a one-time request. So we'll keep justice reinvestment and out-of-state beds open because there's that interplay, and we know that we've got to restore some funding for out-of-state beds based on our conversation of last week, Senator Sears.
Right.
Now we're back at 340, and that's recreation. We're all in favor of that.
Yep.
No changes there. And then offender work program.
Yeah, that should, I mean, we're doing a lousy job on that, but it is what it is. I mean, we don't have enough opportunities for offenders. I didn't mean we're doing a lousy job on what we got. I meant they don't have enough opportunities for offenders to work. And they should be in every prison. It shouldn't be this way.
Yeah, it looks like, you know, the main model that supports that kind of reentry and going out.
Right.
and
Yep.
stuff.
Well, it's part of the problem of us not having county jails or a separate detention center. People are moved so much, and those facilities were all built. And Springfield has a pad that could be a work center, but that's why they haven't done anything.
Well, we've got what we've got for the time being, but maybe that.
Yeah, but I want to make sure it's clear that this is an area that we should all be looking at, I think, is the reentry in the main model. And as we talk about the women's program, we should also consider the men's program, that they need the reentry training as well. Reentry services, I should say.
Yeah. So now we're down to the best. I'm sure.
Yeah, they're doing a great job.
Well, actually, compared to what we've had for meetings years ago, it seems like things have.
Yeah, no, seriously, they are. I mean, you know, you think about some of the problems we had 3, 4, 10 years ago. It's really significantly changed. There's still some issues down there, but nothing like it was.
So the personal services, what is the big driver in that? Was that the contract nursing staff? It's gone from 3.5 down to 18?
Yep,
Is that what that is?
I think so.
Pull up their presentation, I don't recall.
All right, well, we'll concur. And now we're a commission on women. Once again, that's just increases in operating and personal services, so no change there. RSVP, how does that have its own line?
I was going to ask that same question because it's part of my budget process, and why are they?
Been there forever.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it's a rhetorical question, maybe because, and I expect you'll get a lot of questions on it. So
Just going to say, I don't know. Okay. We're good.
where do we make the appropriation to?
Let's just do it.
Yeah, no, I think AHS has a grant that they issue to RSD.
Yeah, I don't think we do.
So Representative Noyes, for many years, ran that program. If you have any questions on it, we can.
She talked to him at night at dinner. We'll close it out. Green Mountain Care Board, once again, they had, you can see it's personal services primarily. That is changing that, and the House made no changes. So, Green Mountain Care Board, all right on that one? Any?
Yeah.
Look at
It's not mine, but yes, I am.
Well, I know your committee's been taking.
Yes, we're good.
And then 346, the new program office that we created, Child, Youth, and Family Advocate. And the House fully funded the cost of the office. Does that mean that the governor's budget did not? And was that just an oversight?
The advocate hadn't quite been appointed yet, and the governor's budget was
So
still.
it's just a matter of timing?
Yes.
But you would support fully funding the annual cost?
We do. There was a little bit of a disagreement as to how much that would require, in part because there's going to be some carry forward. If we assumed, but we didn't have any guidance when we formed up the budget. So we just took last year's appropriation of 120,000 and we doubled it, added a little to even it out at 250. So the addition here is based on various.
Having actual experience to work from.
Exactly. So yeah, we're fine.
There's not actually a lot of experience, but there is an
Well,
actual advocate
yeah, well,
appointed now.
was hired not that long ago. Really sounded like a really good person to take an office and sort of run with it. So now we're down to
So we're
human
actually,
services, and we're back to labor, which
Yeah.
we've already closed out.
so you've gone through the base of the budget now. We could shift if you wanted to take a break.
I think we should, and then we'll go on to one times.
We'll start probably with the climate one times and then go to the general one times.
That sounds like a
We're
plan.
waiting for the committee on the workforce and economic development pieces, and I think essentially you do housing last after you get done with everything else. So I think that's
I
the
think that's.
approach that you're.
Okay, so why don't we, I don't know how much of a break, what, you think a half hour is enough?
Probably, and then we go to 2:30, is that the plan, or?
No later than 3. Today, I have to go to my tax preparer. I'm running out of time. So I'm gonna suggest we,
hours.
we're gonna recess for a half hour, come back at 1:30 and go no later than 3.